Did you know that? I don't know if you know this or not. They're at Today Show. NBC News is doing man-on-the-street interviews in London. And they come across this big black guy, and they start asking him questions, and he's a great guy. He's having a great time. He's a tourist in London. And they didn't know that it was Evander Holyfield. They didn't recognize that it was Evander Holyfield. You got to wonder who they're hiring at these networks, these executive producers, these little liberal busybodies behind the scenes. Folks, let me ask you a question. Did you ever think, when you were younger, that you would someday be listening to a radio show where you learned more than in all the years prior to your discovery of that radio show? I just asked that question of Rachel. Rachel's in for Dawn this week. Where is Dawn? What? Oh, that's right. Family reunion. So Dawn's in here. She's the sub transcriber, and I just asked her how it felt to, be learning more now on the other side of the glass than in all previous years of her life. It's amazing. It really is true. I know. They didn't recognize Evander Holyfield. By the way, headline in the Boston Globe. Snerdley, listen to this. I don't want any calls on this. I just want you to hear this. A headline in the Boston Globe. Republican hopefuls jockey to fill Barney Frank's seat. That's an unfortunate headline. How would you like to be one of the named Republicans in that story? Jockeying to fill Barney Frank's seat. Milton Friedman. If you put the federal government in charge of the Sahara Desert, in 5 years there'll be a shortage of sand. Milton Friedman. Underlying most arguments against the free market is a lack of belief in freedom itself. Another Milton Friedman quote. Most of the energy of political work is devoted to correcting the effects of mismanagement of government. Boy, isn't that true? Isn't that is most of the energy of political work is devoted to correcting the effects of mismanagement of government. Man, pass another law. Government comes along, creates program. Program is an absolute disaster. Government says, that's got to get fixed. Government says, okay, we'll fix it. And it compounds itself, one error atop another. Another Milton Friedman quote. Nothing is so permanent as a temporary government program. I'll tell you, the guy was great. He was genius. Lived to be into his 90s. I think we're in the late 80s. He would have been 100 years old this week. Yesterday, we talked about a new book by a guy named Richard Miniter. This is the book that claims Obama called off the raid to get Osama bin Laden 3 times at the urging of a woman. Valerie Jarrett, White House spokesman, now calling that a fabrication. But you have to love this. On the day Newsweek comes out with a cover saying that Romney is a wimp, the White House is denying that Obama's whipped. That whatever the women in the White House tell him to do or not to do is what he does or doesn't do. And yet they say that Romney is the wimp. Public policy polling, ladies and gentlemen, Connecticut. I'll never forget my first trip to Connecticut. Well, the first real social trip. I mean, I went to Connecticut to appear on a TV show in New Haven. Didn't spend any time. And my first real trip to Connecticut was last 10 years, where I was there for 3 or 4 days and went out, socialized with natives. People who lived there, Republicans, conservatives. It was depressing as it could be. Went to this house, a guest of a husband and wife, and about 10 people there. And their worldview, they're Republicans, they're conservatives living in Connecticut, but all they know is what's in the New York Times. Well, they listen to this show, but all they know is what's in the New York Times, and they're just depressed. because whatever's in the New York Times is the truth as far as they were concerned. And it was eye-opening, and it was frustrating at the same time. And I finally, I patiently sat there, tried to be reassuring, and I tried to answer all of their fears and concerns. After a while, I was getting the impression they weren't hearing me because they just kept repeating the same complaints, the same whines over and over. This is a 3-hour dinner. And finally, I said, would you stop reading the New York Times? For crying out loud, what in the way? You are poisoning yourselves. But they were part of the great Northeast, and the Northeast dominated by the left, of course, which makes this interesting. Public policy polling, a dyed-in-the-wool left-wing polling outfit out of North Carolina, at 11 o'clock Eastern Time this morning, released results of a poll they've been working on in Connecticut. Romney is up by 7 with independents in Connecticut, 47-40. You didn't build that. You didn't make that happen. That is still resonating. There are still people writing columns about it. There are liberals attempting to justify it. Now the charge is that if you think negatively of Obama because he said you're a racist, it's gotten under their skin like very little has. That is a giant puddle that Obama stepped in. Big time. And it's still resonating. If Romney is up 7 with independents in Connecticut, Mr. President, just keep doing what you're doing. And Mr. Axelrod, just keep doing what you're doing. Now, Romney is up nationwide in the Rasmussen poll and a couple of others in independents by great number, but Connecticut? So I think we need more Elizabeth Warren. Let her beat her Marxist war drums. Wait, can I say she's claiming to be an American Indian. War drums, that could be racist. I'd dial that back. But they're going to let her speak at the convention. She's going to go out there and she's going to say, oh, Lord, folks, oh, my God. Oh, geez, how did I forget? I meant to mention this in one of the top 5 stories. Do you know what? They have discovered that Obama does have slave blood. Oh, folks, they are so happy on the left today. They are actually eating meat. They're so happy. They are celebrating. They found slave blood in Obama's genealogical trace. Oh, yes, they did, Mr. Smith. Yes, they did. But it's on his mother's side. White woman. It's not on the side of his father, Barack Hussein Obama. Senior. The slave. Oh, let me find this. Who is it? Reuters? Is it AP? Yeah, let me see. What version do I have? Mine is AP. Folks, they are overjoyed. A team of genealogists has found evidence that Barack Obama could be. It might be. It could be. It is slave blood. That's right. The first recorded slave, not just any old slave, but Obama's slave blood is traceable to the first slave, which, after Eve was created, was Adam. I kid. Here's the story. Team of genealogists has found evidence that President Barack Obama could be a descendant of an African slave, but not through the lineage of his black father. The most likely route that researchers had followed and exhausted. Oh, yeah, there has been an exhaustive search. They've been searching DNA, red blood cells, white blood cells, blue blood, red blood, white. They've been searching everything. they've been tracing markers and guardrails, anything they could find, and they'd exhausted it all. However, genealogists with Ancestry.com said yesterday, for those of you in Rio Linda, in fact, through an examination of his white mother's family history, yes, we were surprised and we were excited to make that connection, said Joseph Shumway, a member of Ancestry.com in Utah. Obama's father was from Kenya. His mother was from Kansas. It had been generally assumed that the president had no slave ancestry. Remember, the Democrats couldn't stop talking about this during the 2008 campaign. It was all about whether or not Obama was authentic. Remember that? Now, the real reason the Reverend Sharpton was not in the tank from the get-go was because Biden was out there talking about finally the Democrats had a clean, articulate black guy. And Sharpton says, well, I take showers. What do you mean? Why? How come Obama's first clean guy? So he wasn't on board. And then, folks, I'm not making it up trying to be funny. I know it sounds funny. There was an ongoing debate of Obama's authenticity. You can't, in the Democrat Party, be an authentic black unless you can have ancestral traces to the Deep South and slavery. Because you're not down for the struggle otherwise. If you don't have provable, documentable, genealogical trace to slavery, then you are not down for the struggle. And questions of, well, yeah, and you have to be marching too. I mean, that was qualifier number 2. You had to march. But I mean, a lot of people marched that were not with slave blood. But they, no, Heston marched. James Garner marched. A lot of people who weren't alive then marched. Just listen to them tell you. By now, every white liberal marched. Every white liberal in Hollywood marched. But anyway, I'm getting distracted here. They couldn't find it tracing the lineage of Obama's father. But no one had performed an exhaustive research into the lineage of his white mother, who, it turns out, had a mixed-race family history. Ancestry.com now said the maternal line traces back to one of the first documented African slave. Folks, it's not just slave blood. It goes back to slave number 1. And they find this in late July during the summer of Obama's re-election campaign. He's now authentic. They're breathlessly reporting all of this. However, folks, quickly, I got to go here. If you actually read the article that AP writes, you'll see that the researchers say they cannot establish a definitive link because of gaps in the Punch family history.